Imagine this. You are standing in a wildlife rehabilitation center. Behind thick bars of a cage lies a tigress. She is breathing heavily after anesthesia. She is suspected of having killed people. And now, as she opens her eyes, several people must make a decision. Keep her in a cage forever, or release her back into the jungle, knowing she might attack again. Now imagine they release her anyway. More than a year passes, and one day she comes back, not to kill. She comes to the gates of the rehabilitation center with 3 cubs. She is seeking protection. Sounds like fiction? It is not. This is a true story that happened on the Indonesian island of Sumatra. The story of a tigress named Panti and her son Petir, whose name means lightning. And today I will tell you this story from beginning to end. To understand why Panti's story matters so much, we need to see the big picture first. The Sumatran tiger is one of the rarest tiger subspecies on Earth. According to various estimates, only 300 to 400 adult individuals remain in the wild. For comparison, there are about 500 Amur tigers and about 2,500 Bengal tigers. The Sumatran tiger is on the edge. The main reason is not hunting, even though that exists. The main reason is rapid deforestation. Over the last 50 years, Sumatra has lost almost 70% of its tropical forest cover. Vast areas are cleared for palm oil plantations, coffee farms, and pulp and paper mills. Forest is cut, burned, and swamps are drained, and tigers simply have nowhere to live. But predators cannot just disappear. Hunger forces them to come closer to people. They wander near villages, attack livestock, and sometimes humans. And then comes a wave of retaliation. Question for viewers. What do you think happens to a tiger that has attacked a person in Indonesia? Write in the comments. Is it captured and sent to a zoo, killed on the spot, or returned to the forest? The correct answer is, most often such tigers are killed, but sometimes captured alive. Panti was suspected of attacking people. There was no direct evidence, but circumstances were against her. Normally, conflict tigers that survive are sent to zoos or euthanized. But in Panti's case, something unusual happened. The authorities of Aceh province contacted a private nature reserve on the southern tip of Sumatra. The reserve is called Tambling. It covers about 50,000 hectares, roughly 3/4 the size of Singapore, and the reserve's management agreed to take all 5 surviving tigers, including Panti. The tigers were transported over 1,500 kilometers. The Indonesian army had to be brought in. The cargo was that dangerous and complex. But why Tambling? This reserve is unique. Unlike most protected areas in Asia, they made a radical decision. First remove all people from the forest, then bring the tigers back. When the project started, hundreds of illegal settlers lived inside the reserve. They survived by hunting and slash and burn farming. They cut trees, set traps for deer and wild boar, and sometimes for tigers. The project leaders took a risky step. They offered the residents to relocate. Many refused. People did not want to leave their homes and land. So they built a new village outside the reserve. They opened a school, built a medical clinic, and in return, they asked only one thing: do not go into the forest with guns and traps anymore. Gradually, most agreed. Today, former illegal settlers help protect the reserve. They report suspicious strangers, join patrols. Question for viewers. What do you think about relocating people from their homes to save tigers? Is it fair? Write your opinion in the comments. And the results came quickly. When people left the forest and hunting stopped, the number of hoofed animals skyrocketed. Today in Tambling, there are huge herds of sambar deer, a species that is near extinction in neighboring countries. And there are hundreds of Asian wild water buffalo, another rare species. Why is this important? Because tigers do not attack people for no reason. In 99 cases out of 100, the reason is hunger. If there are enough deer, wild boar, and buffalo in the forest, a tiger will never go to the village. So restoring natural prey is the best protection against conflict. But relocating people is not enough. In Tambling, like everywhere else, poachers operate. And this is perhaps the most serious threat to tigers worldwide. Even more serious than deforestation. The demand for tiger bones, teeth, skins, and other body parts is enormous. In China and other Asian countries, traditional medicine has used tiger products for centuries. A single skin can cost tens of thousands of dollars. Canine teeth, thousands. This is not the business of poor farmers. Behind it are organized criminal groups that send trained teams into the forests. They disguise themselves as palm oil workers or loggers, but in reality, they set hundreds of snares. How do these snares work? It is terrifyingly simple. A poacher ties a steel cable to a tree in a place where tigers often pass. For example, on a trail along a river or a mountain ridge. The cable forms a loop lying on the ground. Nearby, a trigger mechanism is buried, disguised with leaves and branches. The tiger steps on it. The loop snaps around its leg. The more the animal struggles, the tighter the noose becomes. The animal dies of pain and starvation over several days if help does not arrive. In northern Sumatra, they once found a tigress that had been in such a snare for almost a week. The footage is hard to watch. She lies on her side, fur matted, eyes clouded with pain. She was saved, but not all are. In the Tambling Reserve, there is now a special team of armed rangers. One of them used to be a poacher himself. He spent 3 years in prison for poaching. When he got out, he was offered a choice: come back to the forest as a protector. He agreed. This man turned out to be an invaluable source of information. He showed where poachers usually set traps, what time of year they are most active, which trails they use. Thanks to him, rangers find and destroy hundreds of snares each year. Every snare found is a life saved. Question for viewers. Would you trust a former poacher to become a ranger? Should he be allowed to work in conservation, or should he have stayed in prison? Write yes or no in the comments. If you have watched this far, then wildlife conservation truly matters to you. Subscribe to the channel so you don't miss the next stories about rare animals and the people who save them. And give this video a like. It will help others find it. Thank you. The job of a ranger in a tropical forest is not a walk in the park. Patrols last 10 days at a time. Rangers sleep in muddy pits, wade through raging rivers, fight off leeches. At any moment, they may encounter armed poachers. and such encounters happen regularly. Once, a group of rangers discovered several men with guns not far from a snare. They were resting, clearly not expecting to see guards. The rangers called for backup and detained the intruders. Such operations resemble military actions, with shouting, running, searches. But it is the only way to protect the reserve, which is surrounded by ocean on 3 sides, and by human settlements on the 4th. Let us return to Panti. When she was brought to Tambling, she and the other conflict tigers lived in the rehabilitation center. This is not a zoo. The enclosures are large, with trees and water. Tigers are not fed every day or on a regular schedule, so they do not lose their hunting instinct. Sometimes live goats or pigs are thrown in. After some time, the specialists decided Panti was ready for release. She was fitted with a satellite collar, a heavy device that transmits a signal several times a day. And she was released. For 6 months, everything went well. The collar showed that Panti stayed deep inside the reserve and did not approach villages. Then the battery died, and the signal stopped. That was expected. Then, 13 months after her release, something incredible happened. Panti came back to the rehabilitation center's enclosures on her own. She was exhausted, but calm. She did not try to attack people. She simply lay near the fence and waited. The staff could not believe their eyes. Then 3 striped cubs emerged from the bushes. Panti had given birth in the forest and brought them to the place where she herself had lived. She was seeking protection and perhaps food for her babies. The cubs were named Badir, Topan, and Bentang. All 3 were males. One of them, later named Petir, lightning, turned out to be the largest and boldest. Tiger cubs are born blind and helpless. In their first days, they cannot even stand. Panti fed them milk that quadrupled each cub's weight in the first month. By 1 year of age, a healthy human baby gains 25 times its birth weight. A tiger cub gains more than 100 times. At the center, they were watched around the clock. Staff did not pet or cuddle the cubs. On the contrary, they minimized contact. The animals must not get used to humans. They were given meat in large chunks, then whole carcasses, then live prey. Panti taught her sons to stalk, grab, and kill. After 2 years, the 3 brothers had grown into large, muscular males. Each weighed over 100 kilograms. They already knew how to hunt on their own. But could they survive in real jungles, full of other tigers that would not tolerate strangers on their territory? Question for viewers. Who do you think is harder to release into the wild? A tiger that once lived in the wild and was captured, or a tiger born and raised in captivity? Write your opinion in the comments. Before releasing Panti and her sons, it was necessary to find out how many tigers already lived in Tambling, and whether there was free territory for them. To do this, researchers and rangers set up a network of nearly 200 automatic cameras in the forest. Placing such cameras is dangerous work. The group is always accompanied by armed rangers. Cameras are attached to trees about 40 centimeters above the ground. They are triggered by motion and heat. When a tiger, deer, or person walks past, the camera takes a photo. Over several months, more than 1,000 pictures were collected. And here is what they found. At least 31 adult tigers live in Tambling. That is the highest tiger density in all of Southeast Asia. Over 50,000 hectares, more than 30 predators. The stripes on each tiger's coat are unique, like human fingerprints. From the photos, researchers learned to distinguish individuals, track their movements, and identify family groups. They discovered that some tigers share the same trails with people. Local villagers sometimes walk the same forest corridors as the predators. And yet there is almost no conflict, because the tigers have enough food, and because people know how to behave. The decision was made. Release Panti again, and together with her, one of her sons, Petir. But first, a full medical examination and new satellite collars were needed. Examining a wild tiger is always a risk. The animal is sedated with an injection through a long pole. While the tiger is asleep, there are only 20 to 30 minutes to draw blood, measure weight, check teeth, implant a microchip, and attach the collar. With Petir, everything went smoothly. He weighed 122 kilograms, 100 times his birth weight. His teeth were sharp and healthy. His blood was clean. But Panti was sedated for the third time. Her body reacted poorly. Veterinarians noticed her breathing dropped to 6 breaths per minute, critically low. They had to administer an antidote and stop the examination. Panti nearly died under anesthesia. For several minutes, everyone waited in silence to see if she would wake up. Finally, the tigress opened her eyes, but for a long time she could not move. Then suddenly she stood up and struck the bars with her paw. Her fighting spirit had returned. Blood tests taken before her breathing weakened showed that Panti was physically healthy. The only question was whether she would survive another release. The decision was left to the veterinarians and project leaders. They said, yes. The release was prepared like a television show, and that was intentional. Indonesian television broadcast it live. High-ranking officials were present, dozens of journalists. Days before the event, notices were posted in nearby villages. Residents were asked not to walk in the forest alone, to lock up their livestock at night, and to keep children indoors after sunset. Such precautions are standard for areas where tigers live. The cages with the animals were placed in an open field so that cameras could capture everything in detail. Nearby, live pigs were tied as bait to encourage the tigers to come out without hesitation. Question for viewers. What do you think about broadcasting a tiger release live on television? Does it help raise awareness, or does it turn animal rescue into a spectacle? Write your opinion in the comments. Friends, if you want to know how this story ends, stay with me for a few more minutes. And in the meantime, write the word tiger in the comments, all caps or not, just so I know who made it this far. And don't forget to subscribe. There are many more stories like this to come. The day of the release arrived. The cages stood in the field. The keys were handed to the officials. Panti was released first. The door opened. Panti hesitated for just a second, then burst out in a huge leap. She did not look back. She did not return to the humans. Within 3 seconds, she had disappeared into the thicket. Everyone breathed a sigh of relief. Now it was Petir's turn. The young tiger, born in captivity, had never seen a real forest. He came out of the cage slowly, uncertainly. He stopped. He sniffed the air. Instead of running into the jungle, he hid under a wooden camera platform where the television crew stood. 1 minute passed, then 2, then 5. Petir lay under the platform, breathing heavily. He was not a coward. He simply did not know where to go. The entire world he had known was the size of an enclosure. Then he noticed the tied pig. The hunting instinct kicked in. Petir stood up, took a few steps toward the prey, and then, at the last moment, turned and finally ran into the forest. On the 10th minute, he disappeared behind the trees. Ten minutes of tense silence. Applause only came when the last stripe of fur vanished into the green haze. The satellite collars worked for 4 months. Every day, specialists received data. Where Panti was, where Petir was, how far they moved from the release site, whether they met other tigers. The results exceeded expectations. Neither Panti nor Petir approached the villages even once. They established territories deep inside the reserve. Petir, despite being born in captivity, learned to hunt deer and wild boar. He marked his territory, avoided encounters with adult males. He became a true wild tiger. Panti also behaved perfectly. No reports of conflict, no attacks on livestock. It was as if she remembered she had been given a second chance and used it well. After 4 months, the collars detached automatically, as designed. The tigers vanished from the radar, but camera traps continued to capture them occasionally. Panti looked healthy and well-fed. Petir was even larger than at release. This story is not a fairy tale with a happy ending for all Sumatran tigers. Outside Tambling, they continue to be killed. Forests are burning and being cut down. Poachers set new snares. Every year, the population shrinks. But the story of Panti and Petir proves something important. Sometimes a conflict tiger, even one suspected of attacking humans, can return to the forest and live there without harming people. And a tiger born in a cage can learn to be wild. It does not always work. About half of released animals die. But those that survive give hope. Today, more than 30 tigers live in Tambling. That is the highest density in all of Southeast Asia. And each one is the result of enormous effort. Relocating people, patrolling forests, fighting poachers, medical care, and above all, the willingness to take risks. If you have listened all the way to this point, you are a true nature enthusiast. Write in the comments, do you think the Tiger Conservation Project should expand to other areas of Sumatra? Or is it better to focus all efforts on one reserve? I am curious about your opinion. Subscribe to the channel so you don't miss the next stories about rare animals. I have many of them. Give this video a like if you believe that even the most dangerous predator can be returned to the wild with respect and without cruelty. And remember, 400 tigers remain on all of Sumatra. Not 4,000, not 40,000, 400. Each one is a Panti or a Petir. Each one deserves a second chance. Thank you for your attention. See you in the next videos.